Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you for joining us once again here at the EOC. The freezing rain has now ceased. However, upwards of 8 inches of accumulated ice remain in the Burlington area and its northern environs. Prioritization of relief efforts is currently underway. Forecast from the National Weather Service puts temperatures between 34 degrees during daylight and dropping to 28 degrees during periods of darkness. Though not optimal for rapid melting, the temperatures are the most ideal conditions, maximizing the salt and abrasives put on our roadways by VTrans. Unfortunately, we are not out of the woods yet. The National Weather Service has issued a follow-up alert of dropping temperatures next week, perhaps to as low as 15 degrees, adversely impacting our recovery efforts through the refreezing of roads, bridges, tunnels, and power lines. Velco has informed the EOC of several miles of downed power lines littering both primary and secondary transportation arteries. 100% of available Velco assets are engaged. However, it is readily apparent that additional outside assets will have to be deployed to fully mitigate the storm consequences. It is predicted to take several months for the power grid to become fully operational. Immediate concerns include 1. Workforce availability and mandatory scheduling, 2. Potential overtime costs that have not been budgeted, and 3. The shortage of critical reconstruction materials now on back order, requiring identification of new suppliers as far away as Arizona and California. Work area accessibility is also a concern. Velco teams have been unable to reach the hardest hit areas due to road conditions and the inconsistent mechanical availability of Velco's fleet of service vehicles for operations due to the harsh weather. The Governor's power restoration priorities include Burlington and Montpelier. Rural areas will have to wait longer for service, with shelters provided to those in most immediate need. The Department of Transportation has determined that both primary and secondary roads remain too dangerous for travel. Main highways remain closed to travel due to extreme ice conditions. In the northern counties, 95% of the road network is not traversable at this time. Attempts to improve road conditions are currently underway by transportation crews. Bridges and tunnels are of particular concern where freezing occurs more quickly and is much slower to melt. The Department of Transportation has notified the Governor's office that the snow removal contingency fund is rapidly diminishing to include financing for private sector outsourcing, just as it appears that the Department of Transportation will have to rely more and more on the private sector for response support. Supplies of salts and road abrasives are disappearing at a rapid rate. That exemplifies the critical material issues facing the Department of Transportation at this point in the emergency. The Governor announced today that the federal government has declared a state of emergency for Vermont to include Chittenden County and the surrounding northern counties. FEMA is currently organizing funds and resources in support of our recovery efforts. I have already spoken with Mr. Albert Lewis, Federal Coordinating Officer for the federal recovery efforts in our affected area. We discussed shortfalls in overtime pay and immediate access to a broader base of national capabilities, accelerating our storm recovery efforts. As the Regional Emergency Coordinator, working in close coordination with city and county administrators, I will move with a sense of urgency over the next 24 hours to identify and prioritize gaps in both the response and recovery phases of our EM plan, subsequently informing state and federal authorities where their assets can best be employed. We will leverage our links to the National Mutual Aid System within the state's emergency management community as facilitated by the Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security for additional aid. The tools for executing mutual support in the response and recovery phases of this weather emergency include the Emergency Management Assistant Compact, as overseen by the National Emergency Management Association, or NEMA, and the activation of both intra- and interstate mutual aid agreements under the NEMA umbrella. We put in place many mutual aid agreements across the state in preparation for just such an emergency. It was an integral part of our emergency management policy and strategy. Mission Essential personnel will continue the 24/7 rotation for the next 48 hours. The greatest risk to our citizens remains travel over both primary and secondary roadways. The Mayor's Office and myself, in coordination with stakeholders within the EOC and the Crisis Action Team, will put out a joint press release by noon today in keeping with our crisis communication protocols. Again, even though it must be stressed to the citizenry that even though the storm has essentially passed for now, the precipitation has been or has passed by. It does not necessarily mean that the emergency is over, because it is not. We still have serious road conditions, serious power outage conditions, and serious emergency response issues that will require diligence at this time. So the citizens should again remain in place and sheltered. The schools will remain closed, and government and non-essential government services will not be activated for the foreseeable future. Are there any questions at this time? Excellent. Thank you for your time today, and we'll meet again at 1600 this evening here in the EOC. Thank you.